generations. And now, the power of two restores the one.
We got a bidet! Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're talking about the next episode of The Bad Batch. Last week, we had quite the cliffhanger, where our group was put back together. Hunter and Wrecker met up with Omega and Crosshair on one of the planets that we saw in Season 2, and we kind of had the cliffhanger of, Omega, Hunter, and Wrecker. It was a positive thing that they got out of it, but then they were like, well, who helped you? And then we saw Crosshair at the top of the, I don't know what you want to call that, stairs,
the ramp
platform. Yeah, the ramp. Crosshair was at the top of the ramp, and then we just kind of ended the episode. So this episode, we were anticipating some, drama to unfold. But they definitely took an interesting angle with how they wanted to handle last week's not hangover, cliffhanger. All right, so Sarah, what happened this week?
So we do dive into that drama, but not right away. We start off our episode with Hunter and Wrecker and Omega on Pabu. That's kind of like the paradise planet that they had been on before, or island. Very tropical. Omega actually goes down and visits Crosshair, who is down on the beach line practicing with his rifle. And he's got that shaky hand thing going on still, right? So he's trying to figure out how to get better accuracy. I believe they said his accuracy was 53% on the targets he was hitting, which is really bad, especially for somebody who used to be quite the sharp marksman like he used to be. Omega's trying to get him to talk to Hunter and to try to mend that relationship. They may kind of insinuate that they just didn't talk at all, period, until they got here. And so things are really awkward and there's a lot of high tension. Echo actually arrives on the island, so he's joining our group again. They discuss, what did you see when you were captured? What do you know about Tantus and all of that good stuff? They want to use Nalase's data pad that Omega has to try to figure out, how do we get back to Tantus? What schematics or like maps of the area do we have? But it's not working, all right? And it needs some sort of power source, and it kind of needs to be decoded.
If only they had a smart person on the team.
Rest in peace, Tech. He could have helped.
I know we miss Teague, but there is a way they can get around that encryption, though. They come up with a plan B.
Yes. So they're gonna go visit. I believe you said it was Barton 4.
Yep.
Barton 4?
They want to plug in the data pad to an Imperial, I don't know, computer, I guess, bypass the encryption, so that they can get the information, get the coordinates, so they can find where this planet is, where this base is, because they want to try to save the rest of the clones.
And stop the Imperials from what they're doing, right?
Of course, they've done some pretty bad stuff, going back all the way, all 3 seasons of the Bad Batch, and further, obviously.
We know this planet from before. This is where Crosshair actually shot an Imperial officer. And he later reveals that to Hunter. But before we get too far down that storyline, one thing that happens before they get to this planet that I think is kind of important is that Wrecker gives Crosshair his armor back. So Wrecker has quite a bit more faith in Crosshair than Hunter does. As Wrecker says, if Omega trusts him, then so do I. That's good enough for me. But Hunter's still pretty apprehensive about it. So once they actually get to this planet, there's kind of some back and forth, right, between Hunter and Crosshair. They're kind of walking the perimeter out on their own. Why are you being so weird about this planet? What do you know? What are you not telling me? There's a lot of tension. So that's when he reveals that he killed that officer because they betrayed him first. He starts to actually blame Hunter for Omega being taken and is mentioning that he had risked his life to send a message to Hunter to try to warn them that they were going to take Omega. I don't actually remember this part happening in the previous season. Did that ring a bell to either of you two?
Yeah, somewhat. I believe, I mean, I don't think anyone knows the full details on the situation, but I think Crosshair knew that they were after Omega. I think he overheard Hemlock say that or something. Basically because if they had Omega, they could get Nala Se to continue her work, her cloning work, basically. I think that was the idea.
Right.
But now there's another reason they want her, so it's kind of different. But I think that was the original reason. I don't know if you remember that any differently, Jeremy, from season 2.
I just feel like when they said it, it made me feel like I remembered it happened, but I can't recall, like I can't even picture in my mind the scene or anything like that of when he did it. But it sounds like something that would have happened in season 2.
Yeah, because I think they started like interrogating him and everything, and then they were like, give us information about the Bad Batch, give us information about, and then I think they eventually asked about Omega, so he knew that that's kind of what they wanted. So I think Crosshair, like, I don't know, I have like little whispers of the scene in my head, but I think he like tries to do some sort of not even escape because he just gets to like a terminal and sends out a message, right? He just sends like a coded message out to the Bad Batch to like, I don't know. It's not when they like go on a rescue mission. Season 2 is a little fuzzy for me. I should have rewatched it before this, but
I think it's fuzzy for everybody.
yeah.
Well, Crosshair is not afraid to rub that in Hunter's face. You know, Hunter's been pointing fingers at him this whole time, so Crosshair's kind of doing it right back, trying to say, you're just mad that I'm the one that saved her and not you. But we kind of put all this aside because when they're there at this planet, they had to turn off the perimeter sensors. It was emitting some sort of frequency that was messing with the equipment. They are able to look at the data pad and try to figure out what they can from it. I don't think they actually got too much usable information, just the fact that there's significantly more prisoners there than what they had anticipated. Most of what's on this data pad is just kind of like medical files and not really building schematics or anything that would be useful to our group. But because this perimeter sensor was turned off, the power somehow gets shut off too. And there's something big coming for them. There's this big crazy creature that's like pawing at the door. I don't want to say pawing because they call it like a worm at one point, I think. But it's at their door, right? And so it's between them and their ship. They can't leave until they get rid of this thing. So the group splits up. We've got, I believe it's Echo who's underground in the tunnels because he's trying to go turn the power back on, but they need this like worm creature monster to be outside of the perimeter before they turn it back on. That way the perimeter sensors can emit the sound to get the creature away from them, right? So there's kind of some action sequences, a little bit of tension and struggle as they try to not die, right? And safely get away from this crazy monster. It's kind of one of those everybody has to work together, put your differences aside, otherwise we're all going to die, right? So
Well, specifically, it is everybody, but specifically it's Crosshair and Hunter have to work together because they're the ones that are kind of leading the beast away, while Echoes has watch for them.
yeah, so they're able to get that monster outside of the perimeter. and turn the power back on, kind of just in the nick of time before somebody gets really badly hurt or trapped. And that's basically the end of the episode. Hunter and Crosshair have to kind of work together to achieve this goal of not dying, which is always a good goal.
Yeah.
But that's about where we leave off, is that everybody's safe now and it's time to leave the planet. Did you have any other major notes or milestones that you wanted to bring up?
Well, towards the end of the episode, like kind of what we're left with is it seems like I forget what he exactly says, but there's another interaction between Crosshair and the group, and he says something, and it kind of gives us as the audience the idea that okay, they're probably pretty good to go now. They're probably not perfect, but this was that episode that brought them back together, and they have kind of a understanding amongst each other.
Yeah, I think because Crosshair was away from the Bad Batch for quite a while actually. I think it was like pretty much all of season 2. Um, so yeah, in his time away, he definitely was able to see the Empire for who they are and how they treat the clones, and so he just completely has kind of come around. It took him a while longer than the rest of them because he was pretty kind of dogmatic in his ways, I think. Um, really set in that like this is my job, this is what we were, literally made for, was to be soldiers. And so he was just stuck in that soldiers follow orders mindset. He just But yeah, he finally saw how
Speaking
they
of
treat the
that,
clones.
I had a question for you guys. So we know at least the majority of the Bad Batch group had their chips removed, but I don't think Hunter's had his removed, right?
You mean Crosshair?
Yes. Goodness, Jeremy, you gave the bad mojo to me.
There's too many of them, and they're
Crosshair,
all
not
voiced by
Hunter.
the same person. So,
Someone else did it.
um, I don't remember what they said about their chips. Didn't they say that they were different from the rest of the regular clones pretty early on in?
I thought that was the scene where Crosshair got his really bad scarring was because he was trying to attack the rest of the Bad Batch because he was with the Imperials at this point.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
got burned.
his chip was removed. It said the Empire removed it. I just did a quick search.
Oh, there you go.
So yeah, his chip is removed.
Why would the Empire remove it? That's strange.
I'm not
Yeah,
too
I guess if it was
sure,
malfunctioning, maybe.
but
Interesting.
again, it's one of those things where some of that stuff is really fuzzy, but I think all of them have been removed at this point.
Yeah, I think everybody else had theirs removed. I just wasn't sure about Crosshair.
Yeah, I just remember that they weren't really affected by Order 66,
Yeah.
Also,
besides Crosshair in that moment.
to piggyback on something that Austin had said, you were mentioning that Crosshair was talking about, with his experience with the Empire, that they're basically there to be used, and then once they're done with them, they're done with them, which is interesting because when they get to this planet, the ice one, he says something along the lines of, um, it had its use or something like that about the
Yeah,
base.
it served its
So
purpose.
yeah, there you go. So once they used it for what it needed, they took off. So that's kind of how even he feels. So he kind of like echoes his own feelings into what's going on in the situation.
Yeah, definitely. Well, there was one line I want to ask you guys about. Um, when they're having like a little heart to heart back on Pabu, Omega is talking to, I think she's talking to Crosshair, and she says, "I'm older than you." What do you guys think about that?
I thought it was funny.
Yeah,
Do
little
you
brother.
so do does Clone Force 99 have the growth accelerator?
They must, right? and then she must not.
Yeah, because I was gonna say otherwise she's like really short for her age.
Yeah,
I thought it was cute.
yeah. So she must have been one of the earlier clones. She's probably around the same age as Rex then.
Could be.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, maybe we'll find out. We'll see.
Well,
Curious to see where we go from here because I feel like we weren't left with really any kind of cliffhanger. Just everybody's back together. The data tablet that they were going to use for information to move forward didn't really give them anything to move forward with. There's kind of not really any solid leads on what to do or where to go.
well, that actually leads into the question I had for the group. So this is episode 5, and there's 15 episodes in the season, so that means we're a third of the way through. That's Act 1. So Act 1 was getting the band back together. So what do you think's gonna like? Pretty sure we talked about this last week. I think next week episode is the two-parter, right? So I
Yeah.
thought it was
I believe
this week and ended up being next week. So next week is going to kick off Act 2. So maybe we're going to get something else rolling now that we got everybody else set.
Yeah. I mean, they're not um shy about just like throwing in a little like, oh, here's a piece of intel. Here's a little mission, Bad Batch. Just go do this little side mission real quick. So like I wouldn't be surprised if they like get some intel from some person.
one of Echo's friends needs help or has some sort of lead to give to them.
Yeah, it could be somebody they know, somebody they don't know. Like it could be anybody.
I'm kind of hoping there's some sort of thing where Hemlock catches up to them and then they have, a little back and forth with their mission. And then the middle part of this season is kind of like the quote unquote darker part of the season. Maybe we find out what Project Necromancer is, or maybe something happens to Nala Se. Um, I think a lot of things could happen here.
Hmm.
Just don't kill Betcher. I will be very upset.
They
Just like I
can't kill him.
was
He's got the
when Tech,
GPS tracking chip, remember? That's how they're gonna track him down.
just
I
like
don't
when
know.
Tech left. This is not okay.
I'm gonna say maybe once they find him, that's when they kill Betcher.
Um, Jeremy, don't we know from the trailer? I don't know. I'm pretty sure you saw the trailer for this season, but isn't Asajj Ventress showing up at some point?
Oh, that's right. That's right.
So
Yeah,
Yep.
where's she gonna be in
she
the
must be in the
picture?
next 5 somewhere.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if they would do that next week or not, but
I think what would be kind of cool, and this is definitely just me spitballing, is what if Ventress, gets involved, and then by the end of the season, things are crazy, with going on with the Empire right now. Omega is important, and if she does have this midichlorian thing going on, not only would it maybe attract the attention of the Emperor, but maybe it would attract the attention of Vader. So what if Vader got involved and Ventress was kind of their way to, um, you know, uh, keep him busy while they're doing other things, and it would be another interaction of Anakin and Ventress again. Maybe
right.
they'd have some spat going back and forth about how they basically switched sides since the last time they've met.
That'd be funny. Yeah, I don't know what they're gonna do. I'm
I
excited
totally
though.
totally
Uh, I
forgot that
did
she was
I
here.
did really like this episode though. Getting the band back together, having them have to work together and despite their differences and
A lot of people that I've seen online are saying, that this episode was kind of like Star Wars' way of taking things from Dune because of the ice creatures. I didn't even think of Dune because I haven't seen that movie yet, not one or
Mhm.
two. But my mind went to Tremors. So do you think it's good that they kind of steal from these other popular movies and shows, or would you hope for something a little more original? Because when I saw this, I was like, Oh, this is Tremors, so I already know what's going to happen by the end of this thing, kind of a thing.
So my perspective on this whole thing, it's the whole like, does life imitate art or does art imitate life? I think it's all just like a cycle, right? So I think because Dune came out in like, from what I know, like the 60s as like books, if I'm not mistaken. So I think George Lucas actually got a lot of inspiration for his like Star Wars from Dune. So I think that's where some of that comes from. So now these Dune movies are coming out and everyone's saying, wow, this looks just like Star Wars. And it's like, well, yeah, Star Wars took some inspiration from. So I think it's kind of like a cyclical thing where they've developed on each other and kind of taken those ideas. But yeah, the big ice worm is kind of reminiscent of some things we have seen in Star Wars, and certainly the sandworms in Dune. But I didn't really think it's like, yeah, they're copying their homework. Like, I think they were different enough, and I think the design was like interesting enough. Like it had, you know, it clearly had like hard outer shell to get through the ice. Like, I don't know.
It
I thought it
reminds
was a cool
Boba had
design.
a sandworm too.
Yep.
it reminds me of something one of our cool friends named Pete once said. He asked me one time, are us as human beings ever having an original thought? Because everything that we learn is influenced by something else.
Yep.
So it makes me wonder, just like you're saying, one person's looking at the other, and then they look at a different one, and then they make their own things. Um, Kind of makes me think about that.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thought.
This is now our philosophy podcast. Welcome.
Yeah, we'll have to get Pete on here sometime. That'd be great. Was there anything else you guys wanted to mention about the episode?
I think we pretty much hit the points I wanted to hit. I mean, Omega, they there was one line that I liked in the beginning. They said, you know, how'd you sleep? She said, better than ever. Better than even on Camino. She's with her people, and uh, you know, she's living good right now.
She's been through some stuff too.
Yeah.
And it looked like she's upgraded since that little hole in the wall that she's had in the past, right? Wasn't she like sleeping on a bench?
Something like that. Yeah, she might have a new little setup. Looked like she had some nice natural lighting coming in.
Moving up in the world.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was our discussion on the latest episode of The Bad Batch. If you enjoyed this type of video, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. That way you are notified when next week's video drops. We do have 2 episodes, I believe, to talk about next week, so we're looking forward to that. And because it is 2 episodes, there must be something, really cooking going on. So I'm excited. Drops a like if you liked the video and drops a comment letting us know your thoughts on this week's episode. And then, as always, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.